Dear friends and readers of Indian Cement Review, we have today with us Mr. Samir Nagpal, who's the CEO of Dalmia OCL Refractories. Refractory industry, as you know, is a very strong participant in many core sector industries, especially the Indian cement industry. And talking to him will definitely give us insights into the way things are shaping up for cement in particular. 30 years of successful leadership track record he has, Mr. Nagpal, in diverse sectors. Currently, he is engaged in growing and improving the business of Dalmia OCL Refractories. He is also the head of the advocacy committee of the refractory manufacturers body, which is very, very interesting and important. But at the end of the day, his introduction will never be complete without a mention that he recently won the coveted ET Now Leader of the Year award. Congratulations, Mr. Nagpal, and good to have you with us. Mr. Nagpal, we kick off the discussion, the objective being giving our readers and audience a different kind of insights and perspective into what's going on in these special times, unusual times. So the kickoff question is, how deeply has this lockdown affected or influenced the Indian refractory industry as a whole, and your organization in particular? How are you now coming out of this disruption? And what challenges are you facing? Obviously, there are many challenges on the way in restarting in your operations. And how are you overcoming those challenges? These will be very useful for our friends.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on this discussion. I think this pandemic has exposed all of us to a very new situation. You know, we haven't gone through this earlier, and it is still evolving. So we are still in the discovery phase of how this will impact us. What has happened so far is that we had a sudden lockdown in March, and so we had to shut down our plants on a very, very short notice. So that kind of disrupted everything in between. But once the plants were allowed to restart, we faced a number of challenges, especially on logistics side, because we typically try to work on a minimum inventory level for our raw materials or other goods required for production, and the supply chain was broken. Also, any dispatches to our customers was also broken. So that was one challenge. Second challenge was that availability or movement of labor. I mean, less issue was on availability, but movement of labor was a major problem. So people were not able to reach the plants and things like that. Third was we had to take steps to implement social distancing norms. We had to make sure that the number of people who are allowed in the plant is in accordance with those norms. And these were the areas where we faced challenges. But as everyone learned, all of us have gone through this in personal life and professional life. We also got used to the new way of working. And as of today, all our plants are working. Of course, they're working at different capacities, depending on both order demand and also social distancing norms and logistics availability, stuff like that. So as of now, I will say, we have 5 plants in India. Of course, we have one in China and one in Germany. So Indian plants are currently working without any major problem. Our implementation of all the guidelines by the government on how to ensure social distancing, how to ensure that people remain risk-free, or how to ensure that the chances of transmission, if any, are absolutely minimized. So those kind of steps have been taken at our plants, and currently there is no major hitch in the operations of the plants. But we also provide services, especially to our steel customers and to some projects, ongoing projects in cement. There are also services of installation or gunning or application of refractories. And in those areas also we face some challenges even now, because it's an evolving situation where people live, where the site is, where the plant is, and movement. There are restrictions. So those kind of challenges still remain, but we are managing. As far as offices are concerned, we decided to not open any of our offices because most of our offices are in metros, and the way situation is evolving, we thought it was better to let our employees work from home. We have figured out that working from home is quite efficient. Uh, the, uh, the dawn of Zoom era, if I may say, has made meetings very effective, discussions, interactions. So we, feel close to each other. There is no major disruption. I mean, we have even gone through our annual audits for publishing our results, our board meetings, without any hitch. So I will say that those things have, kind of gone towards this new normal. Of course, it's a different normal, and but I think the challenge still remains at our application sites. At services we give to cement plants or steel plants.
Yeah, I appreciate that response. I take it that you are taking a very cautious but well-planned approach to resuming your operations and bringing them to a certain level commensurate with the demand from the market. And we also note that the application area, the services area, which is on site, is perhaps still a little bit hamstrung. And we hope that also improves quickly. The next point that we have to ask you is, looking at the early signs that you are seeing today from the industries, and particularly we are interested in the cement industry. What are your projections for the refractory industry's demand to sort of pan out in FY21 compared to the last year, for example? And how do you think cement and steel industries will do? I mean, if you take refractory demand as a surrogate for the health of the customer industries, which sometimes works. So how do you think the cement and steel industries will do in this year, FY21, which I agree is a bit of crystal ball gazing, because these are difficult times. But what is your guess regarding when things will turn around?
Before I answer this question, I would like to say that refractory as a industry, if you see, 65 to 70% of refractory goes to steel industry. So with this as caveat, and roughly 20% to cement industry. So with this as caveat, we have been in touch with most of our cement customers. We supply actually to every cement maker in India. So therefore we have access to people. Given the fact that we have lost time, at least 2 months of production across the industries, and that logistics is coming up slowly, cements and customers, which are construction activity, is also picking up slowly. Real estate is in a not a good shape. We all know that. We expect that cement production is going to be impacted between 15 to 20% over last year. Again, these are our own internal estimates from our refractory planning perspective. I cannot talk on behalf of the cement industry, and they will be better positioned to give those estimates. But this is our kind of internal estimate based on our discussions with various cement makers. How it impacts refractory is that while in steel, let me also give a little bit of steel. Steel industry has already said that they expect production to be down by 20%. Now, the difference between steel and cement from a refractory perspective is, in steel, refractory is a consumable item, which means it is directly proportional to the steel production. So with every ton of steel, you consume some refractory. In cement, refractory is used for relining of kilns, of other parts of the manufacturing process, and it also goes into some new projects. I mean, last year we have quite a nice number of new projects. Now we expect that the number of relinings which will be done will be lower, or they will be delayed, or it will be extended. So therefore, refractory demand will be impacted. We also expect there will be a slowdown on projects both from execution, possibility, given labor, you can't get that much, you have to have social distancing norms, so therefore construction activity will slow down. But also people will probably defer some of the project by a few months, and that will push the demand out. So in refractory, we expect that demand from cement is likely to drop in India by around 20%. And that's how we see it at this point of time.
Yes, that's that's interesting. In the middle of chaos and in the middle of unprecedented situation where information is not available, that's definitely something that. And let me share with you that this 20% drop in demand estimate is somehow in the range of what others have also spoken about, and I guess that's a very rational number. Uh, Moving over from this demand forecast for FY21, what I have also noted with pleasure that you are the head of the committee of the refractory manufacturers body for advocacy with the government for shaping policy, helping the government, assisting the government in improving the policy framework. So, if I were to ask you, what would be your answer to this question? That as the head of this committee, what's your single largest priority uh, of policy tweak that you would like the government to carry out, not just in general times, but also considering the current specific situation, that will help improve the health of the refractory industry?
So I will not say one, I will say two.
Okay.
Okay. So let me give a little perspective. So if you look at the globe world from a refractory perspective, 60 to 65% of refractory is made in China, and the reason is that 50% of world steel is made in China. So and cement also, they are like the largest producer of steel, cement, and many other metal, non-metals where refractory goes.
Yes, by far.
And yeah, so that means China is the largest refractory manufacturer. It is experiencing its own slowdown. We have seen that after the restarting of Indian steel plants. Let me give you a little perspective. We have seen that their production levels have ramped up quite fast, and we also note that most of them have orders of exports, and a lot of those orders are from Asian countries. So what that means is all these markets which were being served from Chinese steel are probably now buying Indian steel for reasons, could be geopolitical, could be supply chain disruptions. I am not very aware of that. Which means there is a pressure on Chinese refractory manufacturers because there is a less demand, because there is less production of steel. Now, when that happens, then India's geographical proximity makes it susceptible to easy dumping of Chinese refractory. And in China, the way things work, as I've understood, I've been going to China for a decade or more. For Chinese manufacturers in such times, cash flow becomes more important than profit margins, because they want to make sure their account is alive with the loans they may have taken and things like that. And therefore, we find that they dump material in India. So Chinese dumping kills the ecosystem of refractory in India. Now, if you reflect that we are the second largest, steel maker, cement maker, second, third, in that range, second largest by most estimates. India needs its own ecosystem to thrive, to continue to build this capacity. If cement capacity has to grow 30, 40, 50%, if steel has to go from 100 million tons to 300 million tons, you need a very strong refractory ecosystem. Today, 30 to 40% of refractory is imported from China. Therefore, if we allow this unmitigated dumping of Chinese refractory into India, it will not allow creation of a very strong ecosystem and supply chain of refractory in India. Now, the criticality of refractory is that, it is customized to every plant. Mostly it is customized because every manufacturer has its own process. For example, if you burn coal to make cement, or if you burn pet coke, these are two different fuels. They react very differently to refractory. Then you need to customize your refractory. So that kind of engineering skills, that kind of an ecosystem needs to exist in India. More so on steel side, because steel, we have many mills. Even within one steel manufacturing plants, when you have 2-3 shops, each shop makes steel differently, and steel is fully lined with refractory uh, throughout its manufacturing process. So when you have that, and each steel shop is making it differently, you need to customize refractory. So it's a very engaging, interactive process between the refractory user and refractory maker to continuously enhance the life of refractory, to help steel cement makers continuously reduce their cost of production. In case of steel, also to help make cleaner steel. This ecosystem is at risk. It has not been given adequate thought in the policy framework. This is our single, biggest agenda with the government, to sensitize them. Because we are a part of a value chain, but we are still independent industry, and it is a different science from steel making or cement making. Therefore, but the size is small. So the policymakers have not taken adequate note of the dependence of growth of steel or cement on this industry. You cannot make a ton of steel, ton of cement without refractory. And so our single biggest agenda is to say that, like you are protecting other industries in some form or the other, please also have a look at refractory industry. So that is one, because dumping kills any capacity expansion strategy in India. It results in a lot of job losses or absence of job creation, because it's a labor intensive industry. And when we make refractory in India, it employs, and most refractory plants are in backward areas. We also mine. When you make in India, you also try to utilize local raw materials as much as possible. So you create a lot of jobs in the value chain. And today, one of the big needs we have is job creation. So one ecosystem for ensuring that knowledge and skills remain or get developed in India to support the growth of cement and steel. And second, job creation opportunities. So this is one of our biggest agenda with the government. Second thing we are also trying to impress upon the government, and this is recent, and more because of the COVID taught us some lessons. So when the government said steel plants can work because they are in essential services. Now steel cannot be made without refractory, but refractory plants cannot run because they are not categorized in essential services. So this creates a awkward situation. We had tremendous pressure from our customers to supply, but we couldn't. So we are also saying to harmonize this, what do you call essential services, and then include refractory in that. So these are the two agendas I would say we are currently pursuing.
Yeah, both are very interesting. I mean, not if I call them agenda or strategies or campaigns with the government. The first one, of course, the protection against dumping by a country which is more concerned about, or companies which are more concerned about cash flows and not even bare minimum profits, is something that is probably a requirement or a request from many industries, not just refractory. But refractory being small may have been ignored, or may not, the voices have not been heard. But the second one is very interesting about when we define a essential activity, we must look at the upstream and downstream of that to figure out how that essential service can function with its supply lines in order. So I hope the concerned departments in the government, they agree to your point of view. You mentioned in passing that about cash flows in the beginning of your response, and I just wanted to spend 2 quick minutes on that, asking you. These are times when people are suddenly very conscious about liquidity and cash flows and conserving cash and looking at the future with a little bit of uncertainty, the revenues and the future cash flows. So, and you being in an industry which is like a vendor industry to large and powerful companies who as customers have some leverage. So how are you, and you will be at the receiving end of, normally my experience tells me that you'll be at the receiving end of people seeking more and more what you may call credit periods. So how are you, what's your scenario in terms of cash flow, and how are you gearing up for these uncertainties to manage your cash flows?
So first of all, I agree with what you say. I mean, we deal with large customers, and at the same time we deal with small vendors to us. So at one hand, you have to pay your SMEs, within the 45-day mandated by law, and otherwise also generally you would like, their supply chains to continue to run. And on the other hand, you have a large buyer who, you are also dependent from a share perspective.
Yeah.
We have seen this demand from most of our customers to defer payments or to move to a different payment terms. And we understand, but we have also tried to impress upon them that, it's not a unique situation that cement or steel is going through. We are part of the same chain and we are experiencing the same constraints. It's not anything different for us. So I think after initial huge push, I think we are coming towards some understanding. And I will say that we are also working together with them to find a new way of, working. So we are looking at new instruments. Earlier it used to be, payments, say, let's say 60 days. Now we are looking at LCs. So while the payment terms get elongated for them, it's security for us. And if we need cash flow, we can always discount. So we have, evolved or worked out a mutually, workable win-win solution. They get a little leeway, we get a little leeway. Of course, all this means there is a little cost, but it's easier to manage cost than to manage absence of cash flow. So that's how we have kind of resolved the situation. So far, I'll say it's okay.
Yeah, it's good to note that you and the customers and your vendors who are smaller in size, you all are able to strike a balance in these difficult times, meeting each other's needs the halfway and understanding each other's positions. So that was interesting. So we can now, we are coming to the end of the discussion, but the all important question is, refractory, as you have said, we know is a very important constituent of core sector industries, which we are discussing here today, steel and cement. And we have seen how these industries are dependent on refractories. So, there are capex requirements, project requirements of refractories. There are ongoing maintenance and regular maintenance and heavy maintenance requirements of refractories. How are you? And you have already said that there is a threat of imports, dumping by Chinese, and already a large amount of refractory gets imported. So I guess it is a continuous battle by a aspirational company like yours to innovate new products and offer new products either for import substitution equal in quality or better in quality than some of the imported products, or offering savings in cost to the customers either by way of energy savings or downtimes, which are very important in steel and cement industry, as you know, in capital repairs. So how are you doing on that front in innovation and new products and keeping ahead of your competitors?
So let me talk about cement, and I will probably touch upon steel too. But you're right. We are an aspirational Indian company. We believe that if India is going to be the growth market for both steel and cement, the refractory maker also should be Indian. And if you see global steel and scenario, ArcelorMittal is, I will call an Indian origin company. Tata Steel, another large producer, Indian origin. And there is no reason, we believe, why there should not be a large Indian multinational refractory company. That's the broad, concept we are working on. And therefore, we are investing both on technology, on CapEx, on acquisitions to develop ourselves in that direction. So last year, we put up a new line for a monolithic plant in India, in Katni. This is one of the most modern monolithic plant. The monolithic is a powdered refractory versus a brick, shaped refractory. And this is, I can, with all humility say, this is the best plant of monolithic production in India. Very flexible. We have technology which is very latest, very up to date. It's fully automated plant. Now, this is helping us do is a lot of these kind of refractories which were earlier imported, we are able to now make in India and provide from India. So this helps, the cause of make in India. This helps customer supply chain. This helps them in their cash flow. We are able to give same or better performances compared to imported refractory. So that's one, investment we have made. Other than that, second investment I will say for cement we have made is that cement in the brick side uses mainly two kinds of bricks. One is called alumina bricks, one is called basic bricks. Basic bricks so far have been fully imported from China, from Europe. So that is another area where we have started making basic bricks in India, in our Rajgangpur plant, which is a very large complex plant. It used to primarily cater to steel industry earlier, steel and glass. Now we have also started making some cement related products. So this will help our customers to further substitute, especially in today's time. They maintain a huge stock of basic bricks. So all that cash flow can be eased by just in supply from from India, and our plant is very well situated from a logistics perspective. So that is the second thing. Third thing we are doing as we talk is that COVID has put a lot of pressure on cost on our customers. So we are the only full line manufacturer of refractory for cement industry, which means we make everything which a cement industry needs. There are different companies which make some parts of it. So we have the ability to optimize the cost for cement industry by getting products. For example, let me take a kiln. You can change the lining pattern of the kiln, still getting the same life, or changing the lining pattern of the kiln to get a new life, because now you have a new normal. Your production is going to happen a little differently. And through this rationalization of lining, we optimize cost. So we this way create a win-win solution with our customers, that their cost of refractory will go down, and without impacting their productivity. And as far as possible, the life of the lining will go up. So these are the kind of things we do on innovation, on localization, to help our customers. Same things we do in steel. We have put up a new snorkel plant, for example. Snorkel is used for cleaner steel making. This used to be fully imported earlier. So now we have capacities in India. Similarly, we are putting, some other products. We are expanding, one of the biggest product which goes into steel industry is magnesia carbon bricks. So these are mostly imported from China. So, and we also have a plant in China, but we are now enhancing the capacity in India so that we can service locally. So these are the kind of innovations we are working on, besides incremental innovation, which we continue to do to improve the life of the brick, the performance of the brick, customization of the brick to individual steel plants. So that's, what we are doing in this space. And if I may add, last year we acquired a company in Germany, GSB, now renamed Dalmia GSB. And that has given us very, very good access to talent and know-how in Europe. So this company is based in Germany, in Düsseldorf, which is the hub of, know-how, knowledge in the steel segment. And that access of talent we are bringing, and knowledge we are bringing to India to, bridge the gap which exists between European knowledge and Indian knowledge in terms of how to make better quality products in India. So, these are the initiatives which are helping us. And as a company, we are finding that they are giving us results because our exports are increasing. I mean, we are now supplying to global cement manufacturers, which we were not doing earlier. We also hope that after this, because of this pandemic and reaction of the world to China's, handling of the situation, there is a possibility of some supply chains getting rejigged. And we are trying that we should be prepared that as that rejig happens, companies move towards India, towards us. and substitute some of the Chinese products with Indian-made products. So that's the overall approach we have taken.
Yeah, which means that the customers of yours in the steel sector as well as in the cement sector can expect and are already experiencing certain new products which are import substitution in nature, and can expect more such developments in future, given that you have access to some European talent and technology. So much discussion about China. I mean, it's not never complete without a very contemporary topic today, which is about the so-called rush out of China for manufacturing investments, etc. So the context in your case could be, I mean, and I take the help of your insights. The context in your case could be that there are, to my knowledge, a few large high technology European refractory manufacturers which are world leaders. They have set up in the past Chinese subsidiaries to take advantage of the competitiveness of that country and to service the highly competitive Asian markets which are proximate to China. So that, given that context and your interactions with all the players, do you see these companies setting up alternative manufacturing bases in India, given the reservations and misgivings about China that may come up, or you don't see such a trend happening?
So, well, let me be honest in what I hear and what I perceive. People do talk, but I think it's only talk. I see no action. I think as of now, economics rules over sentiments. So even now, it remains a fact that making these products in China is cheaper than making these products in India. And, once it will take some initiatives from the government side to enable this to happen in the refractory industry. So there are a number of, suggestions we have made in terms of how this can be made possible. It could be, for example, if through, under the new policy or the guidelines which were laid out, capex of less than 200 crore will not be a global tender, but will be Indian sourced. How will this be implemented, right? And if there is a more such demand, which is for make in India products, which is economics aside, although I must say that the gap between India manufacturing and China manufacturing is not much, but even if it is a little bit higher, for someone to put a new capex, new plant, is not going to be an easy decision in a times when cash flow is a challenge in any case.
True.
Right. So unless there is a driver to this, which I think, government's initiative, which is wonderful, absolutely, in trying to promote made in India products, but its execution is what we have to see. We already see some positive movement in terms of sale plants. They have convened a meeting to explore how this can be implemented, and they have convened this meeting with the refractory suppliers. So, it's a very, very positive development. But I also see that some of the private sector players value economics over this sentiment. So we are seeing that some of the large steel makers continue to decide on economics, and if it is cheaper to buy from China, they will buy from China. Of course, I understand their own cost economics is important and their own product costing is important. So I absolutely understand. But in the bigger picture, there may be intent, there may be talk, but on the ground, I don't see much action. Other than one or two companies like ours, because we have a strong Indian base and our ambition is to expand in India. So other than a few couple of companies, let me say, I don't see much action on the ground.
Okay, Mr. Nagpal, I think we have come to the end of our interesting discussion. But before we sign off, I would like very much to ask you if we have missed anything that is important for the industry, both cement and refractory, or if there is any broader message that you want to leave with our audience, with the listeners. It's your 2 minutes, we look forward to your own thoughts that is relevant in the context.
Well, I think from a context of refractory and its customers and industry, you have been quite exhaustive. I think you have covered almost all the aspects. I will only say that, from a perspective of individual professionals, it's a little tough time, testing time. And our industry is full of engineers, right? So very technical, logical oriented people. So I would say that people should use this time to explore how they can add value to themselves. So what they can learn new is something they should, all professionals, I will ask all the professionals in the industry to explore that. And sometimes challenging yourself in a normal routine is not possible. So this is a great time. I practice this a lot. I mean, I have exposed myself to a lot of new concepts on management, on many other aspects which I was missing earlier. And use the pandemic positively is, I would like the message to be for all the listeners. Use it positively. These are situations which come once in a lifetime. Make the best of it. Have your learnings and use those learnings when this is over. So that will be my concluding remarks.
Excellent. I mean, I, for one, would fully, wholeheartedly agree with you that use the pandemic positively. And for the younger generation, your suggestion that continue to take this opportunity to add value to yourself, to learn new things, and that always is a winning strategy. Thank you very much, Mr. Nagpal. Thank you for your time that you gave us this morning, and we look forward to having such interactions with you in future, your time permitting.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.